the most important thing is know your audience, right? Like, look at Good Housekeeping. Look at the articles that we're publishing. Look at the style of the pieces that we're writing, right? And try and curate your pitch around that, okay? Because sometimes we'll get pitches that are just so far out from anything we'd ever do or anything we'd ever write. And maybe it's something that's more suited for Cosmo or for Delish, right? But it's not Good Housekeeping style.
Well, hey there. Welcome to Media Savvy, the podcast that gives you a behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to get noticed by media and become the go-to expert that they keep coming back to. I'll be sitting down with successful writers, producers, and entrepreneurs to learn the tools and tactics they use to build their reputation and in turn boost their business. I'm your host, Taub-Dix, and I've been working with top-tier media outlets for more than 30 years, anywhere from traditional print publications to online and social platforms. And I'm sharing my nutrition guidance without gimmicks. But you don't have to be a dietitian for this podcast to speak to you. Through my one-to-one conversations, you'll learn how to build a strategy to get your name in the news and establish yourself as an authority in your field, no matter what the industry. With Media Savvy, I'm on a mission to inspire, motivate, and empower you to have the confidence and tools you need to shine in the spotlight. Are you ready? Let's get Media Savvy.
Well, hi there. Welcome back to Media Savvy, the place where we are making waves on the airwaves. And today I am so excited and incredibly lucky to have with me Stefani Sassos. She is squeezing in this interview before she squeezes out her new baby. And I just found out that literally that could happen today. So thank you so much, Stefani, for joining me. Let me tell you a little bit about Stefani. Stefani Sassos is a registered dietitian, a NASM certified personal trainer, and the nutrition and fitness director for Good Housekeeping Institute. She handles all nutrition related content, testing, and evaluation for the brand. And she is also, so interestingly, Good Housekeeping's on-staff fitness and exercise expert. Stefani is so talented in communicating complex information in an engaging way. And just like the publication she works for, she is exuding quality and trust to millions of readers. She is an avid CrossFitter and a passionate home cook, and she loves spending time with her big, fit Greek family. So we'll be hearing all about this now. Stefani, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me. And what a lovely introduction. I think that's the best introduction I've ever gotten on anything. So thank you.
You are so welcome. And it is the least that I could do. Anyway, we are so excited to hear about the many things that you do at Good Housekeeping Magazine. And by the way, just yesterday, Good Housekeeping came out with their snack awards. And if you're having a snack attack after the show, just go take a look at that issue because it is incredible. Anyway, let's get back for a minute. Take us back to how you first got started in dietetics. And I know that your mom was an influence in how you eat also, but what was your first job like?
Yeah, well, my parents, like I said, I come from what I call a big fit Greek family. So, we're just like the movie, but we all like to exercise. That's what I always say. So that's the only main difference. So I grew up with a Mediterranean diet as sort of the cornerstone, of our household. And my parents were always very active. My dad played soccer in college and, that kind of sort of really influenced my, relationship with exercise, and my mother was always active. So the two kind of always went hand in hand. And I kind of had an inkling of, I think this is maybe what I want to do with my life. It was something very interesting to me. So my first job as a dietitian was as a clinical dietitian, which I think is similar to you, in a medical surgical unit. So I was in clinical dietetics for probably 4 or 5 years. And I ended up, going into oncology nutrition during that time, just because I developed like a true passion for it. And, it was something that was really interesting to me. But that was basically my first job in dietetics, was clinical dietitian.
Interesting. Yeah. So I also was in clinical I had 2 jobs in clinical for 11 years. And my second job was assistant chief dietitian at a hospital in New York City also. I think you were in New York too.
Hmm.
And as a side hustle, I also worked with media. I did media interviews. I gave presentations. I wrote stories. So what made you make the leap from clinical dietetics to media and magazine life?
Well, I love that you just said side hustle because I feel like there's a lot of side hustling happening in those initial, years of being a dietitian where, you're trying to maybe make a little extra cash to pay off those student loans and you're trying to find yourself in this career. But my mission from day one was always, how can I reach as many people as I possibly can with quality evidence-based nutrition information? That's always been sort of my mission as a dietitian. So anything I've really done in my career has, come from that. I think it's really important to sort of have, that maybe guiding North Star or, that guiding mantra for yourself of why are you doing this? So, I was working in the hospital. I had my sort of small sector of patients, and then I would do, some lectures for, outpatient programs. That was a way to reach more people. I would do lectures for my local church and presentations for local gyms as a way to reach more people. I always loved to write. I had almost gone to school for journalism. So early on, even before I became a dietitian, I would freelance write a little bit on the side. And that was really interesting for me as a way to, learn about nutrition, also make a little bit of, money on the side as well, and reach a larger audience. And then through the hospital, there was an opportunity to be on a very local TV channel that the hospital ran. So when I had that opportunity, that was my first time ever on television. And it was a very, very small local channel. But again, another opportunity for me to reach more people and expand that. And on the side with the hospital, I was also running my own private practice because I felt like in the hospital, my one issue was I couldn't see people long term, right? They would come in for a day or two or maybe a week, but I really wanted to have those like lasting relationships. So the private practice allowed me to do that. And all these things, the writing, also the media, the lectures, was a great way to make clients as well and meet new people and make connections. So it kind of all fed into each other, if that makes sense.
Wow. It totally makes sense to me because that sounds just like the kind of stuff that I was doing. And I also had a private practice. And I think that what, pushed me into the private practice was that also doctors would call and say, could you see my patient in the hospital? And in the hospital was literally while they were packing their bags and getting discharged and said, tell them all about their diets, which I thought was the most ridiculous things. And sometimes I would actually give these patients my phone number and say, listen, I can't possibly teach you what you need to know now. So call me. And that was how my private practice actually developed. And then doctors started referring patients to me, but the media stuff too. I think that just like you, especially because I know that you're so dynamic, it didn't feel like working in the hospital was enough for me. And that's why I found working with media was so much more exciting and actually just reaching so many other people. And I don't know if you know this or not, but you are actually known for being amazingly kind and authentic and a caring person. And I know that you have blush on now. And for those of you who are just listening and not seeing the video, Stefani might even be blushing now. But do you find that your faith and your family values in particular influence your approach to your work in the media? And do those values help you stay grounded? I mean, these aspects of your life, I know that they have inspired you professionally and personally. Do they affect your creativity?
Yeah, well, you are the sweetest for saying that. And obviously, I feel the same way about you. I think you're such a light in my life and especially in this profession. You truly are. But I love this question. My faith is number one to me. I speak openly about my faith now, and I really do feel that that's played a role in my career. I also feel that that's guided me into this career of choice, actually, because I really do see it as, we've all been blessed with this body that we get to call home. And, taking care of your body and teaching others to take care of their body with good nutrition and exercise is just a way of like honoring that blessing, right? So that's something that's really important to me and sort of like another, guiding part of why I'm in this profession. And I think it gives a lot of value to that too, right? And also instilling that, with my family, my growing family. And I have a partner who's very supportive of that as well. So it definitely makes a difference. And I think before any of these segments, of course you want to practice your key points and do your due diligence and make sure you're putting in the work. And I'm sure I exhaust my husband going over, my key points before any media opportunity. But I pray a lot before these segments. I pray for God to help me find the right words and to deliver my message in a meaningful way, and that's never failed me. So I think, of course, putting in the hard work, but, having faith, having a supportive, family and friends around you that can support you, it definitely all plays into making it, an enjoyable experience for yourself, for sure.
Well, I think that you are the first person that has ever spoken those words, and I really respect that. And it's funny, I laugh about the husband thing because my husband knows that if I have a 3-minute TV interview to practice for 3 days, like he really needs to be on best behavior. So it really does affect us emotionally a lot.
I love it. They're like our honorary agents. I mean, I'm
Yes.
sure my husband at this point could do these segments with his eyes closed. He knows all the talking points now.
Oh, yes, I know. I hear my husband sometimes at parties talking to people, and he's using my sound bites. So I guess somebody's listening to me.
I love
But,
it.
I don't think a lot of people actually understand what your role is like at your job and how diverse your job is. And I remember we went out to lunch I guess it was a few months ago, and you were asking what I was doing, and I was telling you that I was doing this satellite media tour. And for those who are listening, the satellite media tour is like the ultimate job to do, and it is the most stressful job to do if you are in media. You're doing somewhere between 20 and I've done up to 40 TV shows, all within a span of a few hours, all without ever seeing the people who you're actually talking to. It is super stressful. So I told Stefani that I had this media tour to do the next week, and she said, oh my gosh, so do I. And as it turns out, we were both doing these satellite media tours in the same building at the same time, and we didn't even know that. But I think that a lot of people would think that you're sitting at your desk all day making all these decisions about what goes in the magazine and online without realizing how varied your job really is and how many things you actually do for Good Housekeeping Magazine. So could you tell us some of the things that you're involved with?
Yes, I knew when I, went into this role that it was incredibly unique. I like to call it, a unicorn job. It's sort of one of these once in a lifetime opportunity roles. And I remember seeing an article about the dietitian who was in this role before me, them asking her, what's a typical day look like? And she said, there's no set day. And I couldn't imagine that coming from, a clinical dietitian role where I'd go in, I'd have my patients, I'd have my chart, but there really is no set day in this job. It looks different every single day. I think that's made me more adaptable, more agile in my career, which I think is a really important quality to have. And also too, even when I got this opportunity, I couldn't even believe that they called me back, like when I applied for this job. So I still count my blessings to be in this position. I think that's really important as you grow in your career and as you grow in media, just appreciating where, you've came from, all the hard work that it's taken to come up to this point. And one thing I'll add just before I go into the logistics of the job, about getting this job, I was not looking for a new job. But there was 3 dietitians that I was friends with from different parts of my life that all sent me the job listing in the same week. And I was like, 3 people, like, we hadn't talked in a long time, but we still had good relationships. One of them was someone I was working with, which was so funny. She's like, I don't want you to leave, but this opportunity has your name written all over it. And it was an amazing thing to think, wow, all 3 of these people think I would be good for this job. And that, must have been an impression that I left on them, or them seeing, the hard work that I was doing on my own. And I almost didn't apply because I didn't think I would ever get it, and I look back and I think, how stupid was I to doubt myself in any capacity, right? And I knew when I did apply for the job, I wanted to make sure it was the right fit, right, for myself, because I was happy with what I was doing. And I knew, okay, let me just get in there and let them meet me And then we'll see if it's the right role. You were going to say something, I think.
No, well, I think that a lot of that that resonates with so many people because of a lack of confidence.
Yeah.
And I think that for you and I, we were both kind of happy with our clinical jobs too, so we may not have felt the need to move, but I think that confidence kind of bubbles underneath this. And when others see us doing what we're doing, it's surprising that still, even at this point, that we may not have the confidence that a lot of people think that we have, but it's because of our experiences that we keep trying to push through it, and then turns out to work out pretty well. So you were going to say like what a typical day could be for you.
Yes. And just to go off that point, imposter syndrome is real. I had a ton of imposter syndrome when I applied for this job, but I also knew that, I think I had the base qualifications for it, and I could see the potential in myself to do well in the role, So primarily in this role, I'm a nutrition journalist. That's the, most important part of my job. So I'm staying up to date with the latest in nutrition and wellness. I'm reporting on that for our readers. So we have, of course, the print magazine, but we also have the online website. So we're creating content for both of those aspects of the brand.
Could I ask you a question? When you say staying up to date, that is what I would love to know more about. Like, do you have a lot of people? Like, I know that when I have given presentations in newsrooms, that there are so many interns there that are researching everything about what's going on in the world to see what they need to talk about on their shows. How do you stay up to date? Like, how do you keep up with trends? Do you have people researching for you? Do you like spend a whole day reading? What do you do? How does that happen?
Yeah, so we definitely have teams that, of course, look at SEO data, right? And look at what's trending and what are people searching, right? So that's sort of where the trends come into play, and what questions are people asking on Google. We do have a health newsroom that's sort of keeping up to date with any groundbreaking health, topics. So of course, when COVID happened, we were covering so much of that, now there's Ozempic. I mean, there's just everything that you have to keep tabs on, right? So they do a great job with that. And really, a lot of my job starts the day with reading what are the latest research papers that came out. I'm really looking for evidence-based information. And one thing I'm very passionate about is taking this complicated research, right? Because sometimes if you look at these studies, they can be so complex, but breaking it down and translating it for the reader into what tangible tips can you take from this literature that you can incorporate into your lifestyle, right? Also, keeping up with the product landscape. So going to different trade shows, that's a huge part of my job. Meeting with different brands, learning about sort of what is trending with product development. And Snack Awards, as you mentioned, that just came out yesterday for Good Housekeeping. We do that every year. And I call that like my mini Expo West, because we have so many product supply. And it's a really great opportunity for me to get to see what are the trends in the healthy food space and what are the trends in snacking and where are products going in terms of what is the consumer asking for, right? And we also have a huge database of Good Housekeeping testers across the nation that anyone can join. It's called GH+. And so with that, we get a lot of insights from, of course, the readers, the GH+ members. And, one thing about Good Housekeeping that I didn't think, I knew Good Housekeeping was sort of like a product recommendation machine, right? And we had all these amazing experts on staff, but this role has really created, a true passion for product expertise for myself in terms of nutrition, in terms of supplements, in terms of fitness products, which is something that I didn't know this role would do for me. I thought I'd be doing more nutrition education, but that's a big part, when you're making your purchases at the grocery store, or you're making your purchases in the supplement aisle, or you're making your purchases for fitness equipment, you do want someone who is an expert in that field and can give you informed advice. So that's really a big part of my job now is, product recommendations. And I take that really seriously because you're spending your hard-earned money on these products and they better perform, for you as promised, and they better be best in class. And so that's one interesting thing about this job that I didn't expect when I went into it. it's kind of evolved over the years for sure.
And, one of the things that really makes you stand out and Good Housekeeping is that it's not as if it's just our opinion as dietitians, or our opinion as moms, or whatever we want to call it. Your opinions have been tested.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what a lot of people don't understand. And I remember from like ages ago, the Good Housekeeping seal of approval, it seems like, all right, I should buy that because that approval really meant a lot. But how do you, how do you deal with disclosure? Because this is a big topic now, especially in our profession. But I know that there are so many influencers in air quotes out there that are promoting products that they say are amazing, but that is probably because they're being paid to say that. How does it work with Good Housekeeping and disclosure?
Yeah. So in terms of, let's say, the articles, right, like the different roundups we have on the site, right? We have thorough testing protocols for all these things. It's not just my top picks, right? These products are going through extensive evaluations. We're sending them out to testers in their homes to see what real life feedback they have. And we're very transparent about our testing processes for all different categories, right? I mean, we test everything at Good Housekeeping from ovens and microwaves to, melatonin supplements. So we are very transparent about the testing processes, right? There are paid opportunities, right? Like the Good Housekeeping seal, but to get the Good Housekeeping seal is a very intense process. Not many brands make it. Okay. So there is a very thorough evaluation that goes into it for you even to be eligible to then get that seal and put it on your packaging or your marketing materials or what it may be. And so with the seal also, it's backed by a warranty. So we believe in those products so much, and we have done the due diligence to make sure those products perform as promised, that if you're not happy with the product for whatever reason, Good Housekeeping will give you your money back. That's how much we believe in these products. So in terms of that, there's a lot of transparency around those things. But, any of these article roundups, these aren't paid opportunities. These are literally us calling in whatever products we're seeing on the market that we want to test for this based on, maybe we're seeing that it has good reviews online, or maybe we're seeing that it's a popular product that everyone's getting. We're going to bring it into the lab. We're going to see, is it the real deal? And then one thing you'll notice too in these articles is we might have a best overall, but then we might have a best for families. We might have a best for, dog owners, whatever it may be. So sometimes the best overall might not be the right fit for you. Maybe it's going to be, best for new moms or something like that. So I really do say that these lists are the best of the best. It's just a matter of finding, which product is suited for your lifestyle.
Wow. It's so interesting. It really is interesting to hear the behind the scenes of what really goes on there. And, speaking about getting into your magazine, let's talk for a minute about some pitches we know, and that's pitches with a P. When I coach clients in my media training classes, I know that we talk about, how to pitch to media, how to grab their attention, how to get your story published, how to get your name known. But I know that you get hundreds, probably thousands of pitches. So what makes you open up a particular email? What attracts you to the certain pitch? Is it the subject line? Is it the credentials of the sender? Is it knowing the sender? What is it? Because I know that my listeners really want to know this probably more than anything.
Yeah, it's a great question. The amount of pitches is insane. You can't even imagine the number of emails we receive in a day. It's crazy. I definitely think having a personal relationship with the editor is really important. One thing that I will say, I don't think everyone does this, but I do this. Even if I don't respond to your email, I will save your email to my archives folders. So even if I don't have time to go through each email, I do save those emails because there might be an opportunity for a product down the road. And so then I can search in my email, okay, X, Y, and Z brand, right? But I think having those personal relationships is important. I think the most important thing is know your audience, right? Look at Good Housekeeping. Look at the articles that we're publishing, right? look at the style of the pieces that we're writing, right? And try and curate your pitch around that, okay? Because sometimes we'll get pitches that are just so far out from anything we'd ever do or anything we'd ever write. And maybe it's something that's more suited for Cosmo or for Delish, right? But it's not Good Housekeeping style. Sometimes like if I get a pitch that says, I just saw that you did an article like this, and I think, it would be really cool if you did something very similar, maybe it's a different topic, and then we can pitch that to our top editors, right? So I think knowing the publication, understanding the writing style and sort of curating your pitch around that's really important. And the last thing I'll say with pitches is that if you're pitching a product or even yourself, like be specific about what the product is. Like sometimes I'll get an email about, let's say, an orange, and there's no mention of orange in the email. It's just the most amazing fruit you'd ever have in your life. Just be straightforward, because when we're searching in our email later on for, orange health benefits or whatever it might be, that's not going to come up because you haven't said it once, right? So being specific about, what the product is, or being specific about who you are, what topics you feel comfortable speaking to, prior things that you've done that you think would work really well for our site. I think those are key things to keep in mind.
It's funny, with anything I have ever heard about pitching, and even what I teach, is related to the subject line. Like the subject line seems to be like up there, like a neon sign. You didn't mention subject line. Is that something that's important to you?
It is very important. It's funny that you mentioned that. Sometimes the subject line gets cut off in our view and Outlook. So not that it's not important, but I think like it's the name. I'm looking at the name of who sent it, right? I mean, that's really the most important. That's the first thing I see. And I'm probably only going to see the first few words of your subject line, right? So I guess getting to the point, right? But also, having a relationship with the editor, of course, is going to help. Look, sometimes I miss a lot of emails, unfortunately, just because we're inundated with so many. So I think it's always worth checking back in, but, not checking back in, on the same day or even 24 hours later. Like, I think give someone 48 hours, and if they haven't responded, unless it's really time sensitive, then you can check in. But I had someone today email me at 8 a.m. and email me again at 1 p.m. Really, it's not like this isn't gonna make or break it, right? I
agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And I know that sometimes, I tell people that at the end of their emails, they should say, I'll get back to you by X. Because if you say, get back to me whenever you can, you're probably not hearing back, because things get in the way. Even if you had the most engaging, magnetic email, it doesn't mean that someone's going to remember to get back to you. So it's important for the person sending the email to get back, but without being a nudge.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And again, I think it all comes back to just making those personal relationships, making sure that you're putting a face to the name, right? Even if it's a quick, virtual chat. I happened to have a virtual chat with a PR rep recently, and like it left an impression. And it was someone who they had applied a few products to Snack Awards. One of the products didn't win, and I wrote her a personal email after that explaining to her, I just want to give you some insight as to why the product didn't win. We can't do that for everybody, right? But I have a relationship with her now and felt that I owed it to her to send her a personal note. And she was so appreciative. So even, just making those connections is huge. And you can also, connect with people on social media if you don't have the time to put a virtual chat on the calendar.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's so important. I do several media interviews a week for top tier publications. And I know that reporters come back to me over and over and over again because they know I'm going to give them the information in quotable, sound-biteable words where they could literally copy and paste it without having to make any changes. So what makes you keep going back to someone over and over again for them to be in your magazine or be a part of what you're doing?
I think you just said it. Reliability is key. A source that provides good sound bites, that's huge. And also, I think, of course, evidence-based information, right? Going back to the reliability thing, even if you can't respond right away, just to reply and say, hey, got your email, confirming I'll get these responses to you by the deadline, right? Bonnie, you're always an overachiever and you get them in before the deadline, which I so appreciate. And also that's made me, it's funny, like I learned a lot about that from just receiving responses from you, that now anytime that I get interviewed by another publication, I always get my responses in early, right? Because I know how much I personally appreciated that from you. And you're one of the few sources that does that.
Well, it's not just that. It's I know that when I am writing a story and I put out a query, hey, let me know whatever by next Friday. If it's only Monday and I got 10 responses and I have everything that I need and I have the time to write my article, I'm not waiting till Friday to put anybody else in. Like, unless they send me something that is incredibly different than what I already have, I'm going to use what I have already. So that's why I try to really do things right away. And for certain reporters, literally, I will drop everything to answer their questions, like you.
You're amazing. I know. I'm like, I know you give me special treatment, and I so appreciate it. And I think the other thing is too, the sound bites are important. You can definitely have fun in an interview, but keep it informative and think about, we're going to you as an outside expert for a reason, right? Like at Good Housekeeping, we have a staff of experts that are ready to provide information. But if we're coming to you, we really want to find something insightful for our readers. So keep it fresh, but to the point. I have I just think about this one interview I had done a while back. I won't say who the name was, but it was it was for a fitness article. And you could tell this person was so passionate about fitness, but the article, the responses were just, fitness is really fun and there's lots of exclamation points, and there wasn't anything evidence-based or, insightful for me to put into the piece. And I couldn't use any of their responses, right? And I felt terrible. And also too, it was, right at the deadline of when I needed this to go live. And then I was scrambling, and that made my job harder, right? So I think, like I said, being reliable, being evidence-based, keep it fresh, keep it insightful. What can you bring to the conversation that maybe we wouldn't, have thought of before? Or maybe there's some new groundbreaking research that you want to share in the piece. That's huge for sure.
Absolutely. And, talk about exercise and fitness. What a lot of people don't know about you is that you could lift more weight than most men that I know. You are like a superwoman, even during your pregnancy, when most of us would take advantage of sitting on the couch and lifting a remote. You were in the gym. So what motivates you to do so much exercise in the way that you do it and to power through, even when you have such a hectic schedule and a little one at home?
Well, thank you. Fitness is a huge part of my life. It's something that I've always seen has made me my best, makes me feel my best, helps me honor my body. I think that's also why I've been consistent with fitness throughout my life. And I hope to continue to be consistent with fitness throughout my life, is because it's not something I force myself to do. It's something I enjoy doing. And I only do forms of exercise that I enjoy. I'm not going to, go run on a treadmill for an hour. That's not enjoyable for me. I like lifting weights. I also think, I'm Greek. Our family's from Sparta. There's definitely some sort of pride in the roots that we come from, that I think, I come from a line of really strong women. That's like a part of my identity, and I love that. And CrossFit's been a really great form of activity that I really enjoy. But I also, love other forms of exercise. And what I will say is this pregnancy, I've been very blessed to stay active. It wasn't like that with my daughter. I had a very tough pregnancy with my first child. So, and that I think also improved my relationship with fitness, because it made me so much more appreciative of, wow, look what all my body can do. And I really took it for granted, I think, before getting pregnant with Stella, my first child, and not being able to, get up off the couch. I was so nauseous with her. There was so many issues with that pregnancy. So, thankfully with this pregnancy, I've been able to move. And I'm hoping that it will also, make the birth go well as too, because that's of course a big thing. It's the greatest workout of your life, basically, is giving birth. That's kind of how I see it.
Oh yes, it's amazing. I remember feeling like after having my first child, it's like, I will never let you forget this time in my life. But of course, that I had 3 kids altogether, and they forget and we forget. It's a good thing that we forget those things. But I love that you really have combined food and fitness together in such a way to make it so enjoyable, really enjoyable for you. So that is pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Stephanie, I loved chatting with you today. And I have 2 more questions that I'd like to ask you that I ask all my guests to help inspire anyone who's listening to work with media. So looking back on your journey in the media landscape, what is one piece of advice that you wish that you received when you first started? And can you provide a top tip to our listeners if they want to become more media savvy?
Yes. So I think my first answer to your question is, in terms of like segments, broadcast segments, I always treat the pre-recorded opportunities just like the live opportunities, right? I think that's a really important thing, because I see a lot of people get tripped up when they have their first live segment. And those pre-recorded opportunities are great opportunities for you to pretend like it's a live segment, treat it like it's a live segment. Even if it is pre-recorded, the producers don't want to film you 5 times, right? So I think making sure that, using those as opportunities for you to practice and get your talking points together. And, if you're not sure what to say, just slowing down and giving yourself that time to complete a thought is key. And then those live opportunities won't be so daunting when they come, because you will have basically done them, right? And not taking those small segments for granted. Like my initial first segments on that very local hospital channel were transformative for me. And, I learned so much just by watching myself on those segments. So I think that's huge. And I guess my tip or my piece of advice is just to foster real relationships with people, right? I think that is what is going to give you lasting, impressions and opportunities, is creating a real relationship. You can be ambitious, but you don't have to be aggressive. That's one thing I always say. Like, being ambitious is important. Work hard. But create a real meaningful relationship with somebody, and then they will keep you in mind for those opportunities. That's at least been my experience with media. So yeah, those are my little tidbits.
I love that. And I think that a lot of people don't realize the importance of relationship building and how key that is to keeping up with your profession and continuing to work with media, because and the other thing I wanted to point out is that so many people don't have longevity in their jobs. They move from one to another to another. So when you have a relationship with someone, sometimes they kind of take you with them. And I know that I have worked with people who were, freelancers doing very small jobs here and there. And then all of a sudden they would go to a big publication and take me with them. And that, of course, was a wonderful opportunity for both of us to shine. So of course, that's wonderful. And Stephanie, where can people find you? Please tell us how someone can get in touch with you. I know that you may be on a break, on maternity leave for a while, but where can someone find you?
Yes. So probably best place to find me is my website, just my full name, stefanisassos.com. You can find me in every issue of Good Housekeeping, also on goodhousekeeping.com. And my social is also, everything is at Stefani Sassos.
Fantastic. And I will list all this information in the show notes so people can find you even after this episode. Well, that is a wrap for today's episode on Media Savvy, and a big thanks to Stefani Sassos for schmoozing with us today while taking us along her media journey. If you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did, it would mean so much to me if you'd subscribe to the show. Please write a review, and you know how much I would love it if you would tell your friends about Media Savvy. Remember, it's not just about getting your name out there. It's connecting with your audience in meaningful ways. So be sure to tune in the next time. And until then, follow at BTD Media on Instagram for insider tips and tricks. And don't be shy. Throw me a message if you have any questions for me. And oh, by the way, you're looking mighty media savvy today. I'm Bonnie, saying goodbye for now, and see you in the spotlight.